Just an FYI, before we start, the panel is being recorded, as you probably could tell. So just keep that in mind. If you don't want your voice going up on my YouTube channel, then I guess don't say anything. But hello! Welcome to the panel, part of the Hijack. Why there's some Touhou Hijacks, presented by me, Delta. So, who am I? Just a quick introduction, really quick. My name is Delta. I make Touhou YouTube videos. If my name sounds familiar, here are some possible reasons why. A few of the ones that I made, it's sort of all over the place, but you know what? It works. I also have the Touhou Hijack archive, which is what we're going to be talking about today. And also a quick plug for my newest project, the Touhou University Network. If you're part of a university and you want to start a Touhou club, or you already have a Touhou club there, feel free to talk to me. You can find me at the Big table, or just wandering around. You know what they're like now. Yeah, and my favorite character is Luan. Alright, so what is the Touhou Hijack archive? How many of you follow the account on Twitter or one of the accounts? Cool, awesome. Well, we're a record of Touhou Hijacks. All sorts of different Touhou Hijacks out there. All the different ones. I started it, I guess, 4 years ago now, which is kind of crazy. It's been so long. And basically, my goal is to try to research every single aspect of Touhou Hijack there is, and I write a little thread about it. This is one of the recent big threads about an Australian art exhibition. And yeah, so all of these hijacks are crowdsourced. So I take viewer submissions about different hijack reports, and then I do more detailed research on them, and then post a thread. I've been doing that for 4 years. I have been on hiatus for the past school term just because of school, you know, being educated and whatnot. Kind of sucks. But I am still accepting submissions though, so if you see anything cool, feel free to send it my way. Either on Discord or Twitter or Blue Sky or whatever. Alright, but what is a Touhou Hijack? What do I even post about? Well, problem is that it's got a lot of things. I think my general definition of a Touhou Hijack is something that's Touhou and something that's not Touhou. Now the problem is that what Touhou is extremely generic, and what not Touhou is also extremely generic. Which means that there are a lot of Touhou Hijacks out there by this definition. This is only like the surface of it. When I was making this PowerPoint, I just dragged a bunch of images in, and there's like some on the side that I just couldn't fit into this collage. And yeah, those are the ones that you can tell the difference in a photo too. So it began as a thing on 4chan, but I think the way I've been interpreting it nowadays is the influence of Touhou. Trying to figure out, you know, what is Touhou's influence in, you know, popular culture and just in real life in general. Because I think that's really interesting, and I think different Touhou Hijacks really show that. So, what are these different Touhou Hijacks? There's different kinds of Touhou Hijacks. These aren't the only categories, obviously the line can be a bit blurred, but here's the general things that I typically tend to see. We've got product hijacks, so this is stuff like, say, there's like a Chinese bootleg product, and there's some Touhou art printed on it. In this case, this is some Belarusian chocolate waffles that had rainbow on them. Obviously not, you know, copyright free and whatnot. So those are pretty cool. Then we have background music hijacks. This is Touhou background music playing in anywhere that's not Touhou. So. Okay. Yeah. So that's bad music box version playing on Vietnamese national television for years. So this tends to happen a lot, surprisingly, not necessarily with just official soundtracks, but also a lot of fan arrangements. And yeah, these tend to be, you know, one of the more common ones just because it's pretty easy to just slip a Touhou track into your video, news report, or whatever. Speaking of news reports, we also have news/TV hijacks. This is whenever Touhou shows up on news or TV. So in this case, this is an interview on a Japanese TV show with a cosplayer, and obviously one of the cosplays is Hijacks. Also, everyone on this show is like a pig puppet or like an animal puppet, so that's why Ryuko's a pig. But
Is that her normal again?
anyways, yeah. So this can be either Touhou cameos on TV, so sort of like this one, or like a straight-on interview with like some Touhou fans about Touhou. Because I think again, we're looking at the influence of Touhou, right? Those both show the influence of Touhou. Then we have media hijacks. This is mostly just video game hijacks, sort of like your typical references to a series are typically video game references. So that's what usually happens. This is Call of Duty. It's got you on a sir. I'm sure you've heard that song before. Then we have structural hijacks. These are my favorite, but they're a bit more complicated and a bit more abstract. Generally, the way I look at it is Touhou being inspirational for something. So the example I give here is a couple of years back, there was an art trend about drawing crying eyes using Among Us crewmates. And the initial artwork to start that trend was a Junko artwork. So we're there. So Junko Among Us, right? So yeah, this trend would not have existed if it was not for a Touhou fan artist. Similarly, I try to look also into like where Touhou was the first thing. So for example, the first Vocaloid song ever published on the internet was an arrangement of Beloved Tomboyish Girl. So that's pretty cool. These are really cool in general, but pretty rare. And then we have real life hijacks. This is typically Touhou graffiti showing up in somewhere, but you can get like Touhou art plastered in other places as well, like restaurant walls, Turkish playgrounds, typical places you'd expect to find Touhou art, right? Yeah. So I would break down Touhou hijacks into two different categories. We have purposeful hijacks and we have accidental hijacks. So our purposeful hijacks are going to be where a Touhou fan or someone who knows that this is Touhou is involved in the situation. So we're going to go through a few case studies. We love case studies. And for this one, I kind of want to walk you all through generally my thought process behind researching Touhou hijacks. So first step is, I guess, the mission, right? Okay, we know that Wriggle's Lantern and Yomu's Ghost Blades are items in League of Legends. I know, League of Legends, but bear with me here. So my first step is to figure out, well, what other hijacks are in this game or whatever else, right? And if you dig a bit deeper, you'll find that Lux Crown Guard is very Marisa-esque. A couple of Marisa references in there. So that's pretty cool, I guess. And then the next step is to figure out why did these Touhou hijacks happen? How on earth did Wriggle's Lantern get into here? Well, you know that Wriggle was actually an early beta tester who referred a lot of people to the game early on. And we know that Lux Crown Guard was designed by someone who's a Touhou fan. So that's why they're in there. And the final step is to just figure out anything interesting related to the topic that is vaguely related, but also Touhou showing up in there somewhere. So if you search up Yomu League of Legends, you'll end up finding that the character Oriana in League was actually based off of Rihanna, Yomu's ghost. And I honestly feel that this is the craziest part of this whole thing. A few Touhou items being in the game, okay, that's kind of cool, right? But a character being based off of a Touhou character is pretty important. So really, the Touhou hijack conspiracy goes a lot further than you think. And my goal with each thread is to just see how far the rabbit hole goes. Oh, there we go. But this doesn't have to be like as sneaky as a cameo or something. It can be like as blatant as like a collaboration, right? So this is Asian Railway. I'm not sure if that's how it's pronounced. It's a railway in Japan. In February 2022, they did a Touhou collaboration. Basically, what it was is that at I think 7 different train stations and 3 different shrines actually in the area, there were some Touhou standees with all sorts of different characters from all over the series. And you would go to these different stands, and there's like an AR app you could use, and you could like collect digital stamps and exchange them for keychains. And this was extremely popular. They ran out of keychains in a week. And it was also like very in depth too. Like they had a whole participating hotel, participating ramen restaurant. Kind of crazy, you know. There have been other collaborations by this specific railway before, but this was the only Touhou one, and it's really crazy. And my favorite part about this was that the statues were sold by lottery at the end. So they're still out there somewhere. I could only find the silver one, but they're definitely still out there. My point of bringing this up is that we're looking at the influence of Touhou, right? So that means Touhou being a present part of everybody's ordinary life. And for some people, ordinary life is playing League all day. So, you know, Touhou is in there. But for people who, go out and about on the railway, you know, trying to commute to work or whatnot, Touhou has become part of their ordinary life in February 2022 at least. And that's sort of what Touhou Hijacks are all about. Showing where they sneak in, where you can't really avoid Touhou anywhere you go. But you know, it just doesn't have to be real life. You can do online stuff as well. Who here loves Nightcore? Everybody loves Nightcore here, right? If you search up Nightcore on YouTube, just the word Nightcore, the fifth most viewed result is the Nightcore version of Bad Boy by Cascada. And it's still very well viewed. It was 80 million when I first posted about this, and now it is at 115 million views. That's more than I can count on my fingers, which is quite impressive. You know, obviously, Nightcore thumbnails typically have anime girls in it, right? So, what I tried to figure out was, is this just another generic anime girl, or was this an intentional choice? Well, if you look at the uploader, Alex Blood Rabbit, whoever they might be, you'll find on their Twitter they post about Touhou, and on the rest of the Nightcore videos that they've uploaded, because they've uploaded a ton, you will find other Touhou characters on there. You'll find the pink one, the other pink one, the purple one, and that bird that I hate. Now, Alice Blood Rabbit is not who you'd say is a famous Touhou fan, right? You know, not as famous as say Beat Mario, for example, or I guess A1 is. My point here is that every Touhou fan can become part of the Hijacks movement, right? This is probably one of the biggest Touhou Hijacks out there. I would say Hikage is probably one of the most viewed Touhou characters because of this. And, again, right, anyone can do, even like the most, I guess, smallest Touhou fan can do one of the biggest hijacks. And that's what I really love about Touhou hijacks, is that it really shows how in-depth the community is, right? So, okay, everybody can do a Touhou hijack, but is everybody going to do a Touhou hijack? Well, the answer is yes. If you look at the Toyota Automobile Museum, apparently it's a thing. It's really cool, actually. It's in Japan. And in 2020, they had this like little questionnaire thing that you could fill out. And a Touhou fan went there, and they drew a Red Hill Maribel in a car. See that? And yeah, so that's pretty cool. Actually, if you look at this artist, you'll find that like all they draw is anime girls in vehicles. Kind of crazy. But what's really cool about this is that in 2023, an Australian friend of mine visited this, shout out to 1938, and what they found was that there was another Touhou art version there, added on later on. And we don't know who the artist is, it's not very clear, but we do know that it is clearly a different art style, clearly a different artist, right? So you have two Touhou fans doing the same Touhou project, probably inspired by each other. And what this shows is that, so-called free thinkers when there's a Touhou hijack opportunity, right? So not only can everybody participate in a Touhou hijack, but most Touhou fans want to participate in a Touhou hijack. So those two factors together combine to make, a lot of Touhou hijacks. But here's the thing, you don't necessarily have to be, a hardcore Touhou fan to do this sort of stuff, right? You just have to know what a few of the Touhou things. So, let's see if this works. Yeah, chaos. So, what you just listened to was the intermission of an episode of a classical music show in Estonia. And yeah, so it's pretty cool. They played the song. I'm just gonna call it Death Waltz because that's shorter. I know that's not what it's actually called, so just don't all go yell at me for that. But one of the pianists had, who sort of organized the project, participated on the show before. And if you look at, this pianist, you'll find that they know what this song is. They know it's not actually called Death Waltz. They know what Ronald McDonald Insanity is, so they probably know this is Touhou. So they do have that knowledge. Here's the thing. You can't just go on TV and play Death Waltz on the piano. Well, actually you can't. It's literally happened before in a Norwegian talent show. But that's besides the point, right? You have to have a reason to, stick Touhou in a classical music TV show, right? And the way this was introduced by the host was that it was, a cool experiment. Which it is, it's 5 different pianists playing the same piece, that's pretty cool, right? But, if it was just, a single pianist playing a normal arrangement of UNO's or on the piano, that wouldn't have gotten on the show, right? So, the thing with Touhou is that the different fibers that are made in Touhou, so in this case, sort of the Black Mini version of Death Waltz, was, it presents interesting situations that sort of click with different outside situations, right? So this sort of interesting situation clicked well with this TV show, with Hijack, right? Clicked well with the general nightcore anime girl thumbnails, right? So you have Touhou sort of sliding in there, and the people running this show aren't Touhou fans, right? So there has to be some non-Touhou fan approval, but they can still find it cool, even though they're not Touhou fans. The biggest example of this is Bad Apple, right? A lot of the people who are making these Bad Apple demo scene videos aren't Touhou fans. They know it's Touhou, but they just think it's cool. And that's the case for a lot of Touhou projects, and that's why there's so many accidental hijacks. So, generally these accidental Touhou hijacks happen to be generic anime art. So, for example, this is my strange addiction. One of the episodes, they have some Chirino. You can hear whatever pronunciation you like. It was Shoutout. Okay.
It's just Baka.
The blue one. And you'll find that the artwork that appeared when they mentioned anime was uploaded to the stock image site and tagged with anime. So that's probably how they found this. That actually tends to happen a lot with stock images specifically, but also with just generic anime art being used. Eastern European Sudoku magazines. That's probably where you'd expect to see it. But also any online drawing tablet ads typically have Touhou art on them. It's honestly kind of crazy how many. So yeah, okay. In this case, we're searching for generic anime artworks, right? And we find Touhou there, because Touhou is in that sort of space. But if we find Touhou in other spaces than just generic anime art, right? We can even find it at the CIA. So WikiLeaks, their Vault 7 project is a selection of data from the CIA's Center Cyber Intelligence Network. And if you go on one of the user pages, you'll find that there's the emoticon for Help Me Aaron, it's highlighted there, in one of their pages. So the CIA knows what Aaron is. Crazy. So it's a little side project by one of the users, user 71475, wherever that is, shout out to you. And in this case, right, they searched up Japanese style faces, that's the category they were in. And they found Touhou in there as well, right? So Touhou can appear in, much more specific queries than just generic anime art, right? So this also tends to be the case with things like, brooms, right? There's a Burmese broom company that has Marisa as a logo. She has a broom. French cereal bars. Even the Toby Fox quicksand tweet, which I'm sure you're all well aware of, is actually Touhou showing up for a search for quicksand stock images. It's on a stock image site. So, Touhou is infiltrating all these sort of categories of photos, right? And so anyone looking for some sort of stock image is going to find Touhou in there somehow. But we can go a bit more abstract with this. So I want y'all to raise your hands if you've heard of this song before, specifically this arrangement. Okay, so that's like about half-ish of the room, a bit more than half. So yeah, this is the song Girl Illusion by Singer Sing. It is specifically an Echo Fantasy arrangement, by the way, not Echo Fantasia. I was gonna do a live demonstration of this. Unfortunately, it's this thing over here. It's a toy that plays the music, but unfortunately did not arrive in time, so that's very sad. But it first appeared around 2020. It was made 10 years ago, but it first appeared on the internet in 2020 in sort of the online trend space. It was made by this Czech cat in the middle. It was mostly used by this Czech cat in the middle, but it began spreading everywhere, like every single video. Kept on using it, it keeps on appearing, it continues to keep on appearing, and every few months or so, it shows up again. It's honestly kind of crazy how long this is, right? So, Touhou has now become part of the trends. And so, okay, you can search up, oh no, my battery's ringing, oh, that's not good. You can search up Touhou anime, for example. Anime, for example, by Touhou, but you can also search up trendy music from my TikTok, and you'll find Touhou. Right, so people want to use Touhou music. People actively want to use Touhou music. And that is sort of what powers these apps called Hijacks, right? People see these things and go like, oh, that's cool, I need to use that. So, okay, well, Touhou shows up for a search for anime, whatever. Touhou shows up for a search for internet-related things, whatever, But here's another thing. No, it's fine. I just didn't expect it to be Chinese. So yeah, this is sort of generic promotional video for an Argentine energy company. And yeah, so this is obviously a arrangement, not anything else. And it is specifically a South American folk music arrangement, right? So it's made by a circle that only makes South American music, folk music inspired arrangements, which it's kind of crazy. I didn't expect it to exist. I thought that was pretty cool, right? So in this case, right, we have this you're sort of searching for a generic selection of this thing, but Touhou shows up in this search, even though this is widely separated from Touhou. You don't expect to find Touhou in South American folk music, and yet, here it is, right? So, Touhou is going to show up in every single niche you can imagine. And that is how Touhou Hijacks end up being so widespread, because that means they can fit into any situation. Even though the people here probably don't know what Touhou is, they're just looking for someone to visit, and yet it just presented itself, and they're like, this works. So this can actually go full circle back to the sort of inspiration. So there's this ritual cleansing featuring Rainbow. And there have been guides made to this featuring original characters before, but in 2015 Rainbow started showing up in them, and it's still up in 2025. I looked this up, and the first one to ever have it still has it 10 years later. So pretty long lived. So I guess it wasn't a complete accident. Yeah. So and what's pretty cool about this is that the shrines that have this are located all across Japan. So I'm pretty sure they aren't communicating with each other, so they all independently found this rainbow sort of shrine artwork, and they decided to use it, which is pretty cool. What Touhou, so this is a Touhou fanwork, right? This is made by Touhou artists. This is the English translation, this is the Japanese version that was actually used. But what Touhou fanwork is out there, right, determines what can be impacted by Touhou, right? That determines the niches that Touhou infiltrates and ends up being a part of and ends up placing itself there to have a Touhou hijack. The problem is there's a lot of different Touhou fanworks out there. Touhou draws inspiration from a lot of things and also inspires a lot of things. So that ends up resulting in a very, very large amount of hijacks out there, as we can see by the wide variety of hijacks. But here's the thing. In the end, it's quite. Oh no, that's not good. Oh.
It's blue now.
Okay, well I can still tell the story while this is charging up. Okay, so we have no more slides, but I can still tell the story. So today, I'm going to tell the story of someone named Godzilla 2771. And one day, Godzilla 2771 was listening to a Phelps couple. It was called Reverse Story to Read. And they were specifically listening to the song Crescent Moon. And now, Godzilla really, really liked the song. In fact, they liked the song so much that they decided to commit a crime. They decided to upload it to a free-to-use loop site called Loopernets. And so they took a clip of it. I would have played it, but my laptop's dead, so that's really unfortunate. So they played that, and they uploaded it to the site. This was illegal for the site. You have to have the rights to everything you upload onto Loopernet. This Godzilla person obviously did not have the rights there, so the Loopernet site ended up taking the loop down eventually. But before they did that, there was this producer called Nick Nero, and he was browsing the site and he found this loop. And they're like, hey, this sounds pretty cool. I'm gonna use this in one of my YouTube videos. And yeah, so he made a YouTube video out of it. Again, this is not like a dead man situation. He didn't steal it, right? Because the Looperman site is free to use. He was under the impression that it was free to use. So he's not in the wrong here, right? And he ended up making a YouTube video out of it, and it's pretty cool. So it ended up getting a couple of views, wasn't too significant. And in 2016, he met this guy. You might have heard of him. His name is Juice WRLD. And they decided to collaborate together on a album. Wow. Okay. Yeah, so they decided to collaborate on an album, and one of the songs on the album sounded a bit like what I'm going to show very quickly. There we go, path is saved.
Restart the timer.
We'll skip this, we'll skip this. This is what the song sounds like. So, that was the song Used To by Juice WRLD. And it was pretty popular. Millions of streams of the actual album itself became quintuple platinum certified, which I assume is probably pretty important. So, kind of insane. Probably one of the biggest Touhou Hijacks out there. And the thing is, right, it doesn't really matter whether Juice WRLD or Nick Nero or even honestly Godzilla at that point was a Touhou fan, right? I don't think that really had that much of a bearing on this hijack happening, whether they were Touhou fans or not, right? So ultimately, it's just not about necessarily the people involved, but what's made. The potential of these Touhou fanworks that are made is enough to carry them all the way up to becoming quadruple platinum certified. So that's pretty cool, right? Yeah. So I think an example that sort of illustrates sort of the general idea of this is with cosplayers, right? So whenever you go to a cosplay event that's not something, series specific like TouhouFest, the cosplays you see are sort of randomly drawn for what's popular at the time. It's sort of like that example where you have like a bag of marbles, right? What's the probability of you drawing out a red one? So, obviously the concentration of each series fluctuates with time, right? Years ago it might have been like Genshin cosplays. I don't know what's popular nowadays with the youth, but yeah. So the thing is, Touhou is pretty consistently common, and that's why it keeps on showing up whenever you have a cosplay-related thing. So this is a Japanese TV show. They traveled the world. They visited the Netherlands. They went to an anime convention, and they found a naked cosplayer there. This is the artist TouhouFest. They did an exhibition in Australia, and there's Marisa there. In one of this is I think the financials. It's sort of a bit of a longer video, but Marisa is in there. And this is the movie The Internship, and sort of one of like the post-credit like deleted scenes things. There's like a cosplay event, and you can very barely see her there, but that's the purple one actually. So yeah, so all three of these sort of artists, or I guess things, sort of scooped into the marble bag of cosplays. And they ended up pulling out some Touhou cosplays out there because Touhou's concentration is high enough out there to cause that to happen. And that's the case not just with cosplays, but with anything else, right? With generic anime art, with what else? Quicksand, stock image photos, right? Everything you can think of. There is a decent concentration of Touhou enough in there to actually cause a hijack. Right? So despite Touhou being relatively niche, Touhou is just so prevalent in every place in the world that it just organically shows up, whether the people involved are Touhou fans or not. Right? Okay, but this happens with other series as well, right? Touhou isn't necessarily unique in this situation. So this is Squirtle being given as a diplomatic gift from Japan to Chile, to the new Chilean president at the time. This is Yumi singing at the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. This is a Taiwanese legislator giving her victory speech in cosplay. That's next to the president of Taiwan. And obviously the late Pope Francis heard Megalovania, which I think is a pretty awesome hijack. Not many really stand up to it. Yeah, so, okay, is Touhou really special in all of this? Well, okay, I guess I'm kind of biased, but I would say it is. So I posted about 250 threads on Touhou Hijacks, and I have like a list of hijack reports, and it's very long. So there's a lot more Touhou Hijacks out there. And I've looked at like the references pages for these other series, and they're really not super extensive. Obviously, the one's a bit larger, but I think that's cheating because they're way too big. The sizes are comparable, right? If you take the sizes, Touhou really clearly makes an outsized impact, right? So, what's the difference? Why are there so many Touhou hijacks? I'm actually going to answer the question that I posed in the title of this panel. Maybe, we'll see. Okay, you might think, okay, well, very few hijacks use official content, right? So maybe it's a situation of sort of the loose copyright of Touhou, right? There's like one or two major hijacks I can think of that like use official songs. Besides that, it's all fanfics. Here's the thing, right? Those other series that I mentioned have also had similar hijacks using, fan words, so to speak. I mean, with, Vocaloid, everything's sort of a fan word in the end, if you think about it. With, Megalovania, right? That wasn't Toby Fox playing it to the Pope, though I'm sure he would actually do it if he had a chance. So, okay, that's not the difference, right? Okay, well, maybe it's Touhou super fans, right? Like to, boast of how big of a fan they are, right? But I don't think that's necessarily the case. Because, well, one, people can be super fans of those other series as well, and there are. And also, again, all these hijacks are done by people who don't even know what Touhou is, right? So how can it be super fans powering Touhou hijacks if it's not even people who even know what a Touhou is, right? Who are doing it, right? So that's probably not the case, right? So I think actually hijack isn't the correct word. We use it for branding purposes, of course, because branding is very important. But I think Touhou is sort of getting invited in. If you look at all these Touhou hijacks, right? Whether it was a Touhou fan or not Touhou fan, they had to, get approval for that, right? So in the case of Touhou fan, they would have to invite Touhou into whatever space they ended up getting promoted to. Like if you're a game dev, right, you can sort of invite Touhou into your game to reference it there. If you're a non-Touhou fan, you can also sort of invite Touhou in if you think, this song sounds cool and use it, right? And if you look at really the root of her Hijack story, it's just someone becoming a Touhou fan at some point in time and either making the thing that gets hijacked or doing the Touhou hijack itself. And these are very, very answers. I asked a Brazilian concert singer who did like a Touhou concert thing. And their answer was the way they became a Touhou fan was top 10 anime openings on YouTube. And
Is it memory of phantasm?
The question was Touhou Kinema Can. So, yeah, so what does this show about the Touhou community? Okay, well, obviously, we don't want to get too trapped in the Touhou sort of spell bubble, right? We want to work it outside of that. Don't aggrandize ourselves too much. But yeah, obviously the community does punch quite a bit above its size. And honestly, the thing that I find sets Touhou apart from all these other series the most is the concept of the Touhou Hijack. All these other series just have references to their games or their show, right? As far as I'm aware, we're the only community that has a very specific term, Touhou Hijack, for these sorts of references. If anyone has any other counterexamples to this from other series, please feel free to tell me because I'd be really interested to know. But I don't think that's the case, right? And in the root of it is the Touhou community, right? Touhou community is the root of these Touhou Hijack, right? And so how does this Touhou community form, right? The question is, why did you become a Touhou fan, right? And I'm not talking about what was the first Touhou thing you ever saw, right? I'm talking about what made you like Touhou enough to come all the way out to LA to go talk with other Touhou fans for 2 days straight, right? Why are you here? And that's a question for the audience.
Her.
Good answer.
Yeah.
I like Seki Bunky because she's a Duohan and she has red hair. And for a while in high school, I was obsessed with Duohans, and I listened to a song by DJ VS remixing her theme along with Yamame's and UNO. And I got so interested that I went on the Touhou Wiki and looked up more about her, and I fell in love.
Absolute cinema.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
weird gay people and good Yuri.
Yeah. I can't clap, I'm holding a camera.
Sorry?
The wall fist.
Yeah, you almost can. Yeah.
Yeah.
Touhou's Wall Stage 4 introduces a voyage of a ghostly passenger ship. It's a really good song.
Yeah.
Yes.
I guess like it has good, like really good music and really cool people and characters, and also I've made a lot of friends through here, and I think I'm stuck with people like. Oh, the
There's Sasuke, yes.
Yeah.
The stories inspired my own way. I really can't thank Zun and all of the community enough for that.
Yeah.
I get to wear a silly hat.
Yeah. Oh, silly.
Black Midi.
Let me put my hat back on.
Alright, so all of those answers were completely different. And that's what I think makes Touhou special, right? Because there's all these different Touhou fans. We all like different parts about the series, and yet we all call ourselves Touhou fans. We all call ourselves the same things, and we all go to the same events right here at TouhouFest. Hurrah! So, and I think this is what makes the Touhou community special, and I think that's what powers Touhou Hijacks. So I want to leave you with one last final story about Times Square. In July 2023, there's this app called Takeover Times Square. It was like some sort of you could pay like I think it was like $40 to get 15 seconds on the sort of the screen on Times Square. I don't know what they call it, billboard, something like that. So this was like in July. Wow, there was Touhou that showed up there, and then there was more Touhou. And more Touhou. So I went and investigated this a bit more, and I talked to all four of the people who were behind this. And here's the thing: all four people came up with this idea independently. they all heard of this billboard from different sources, and they weren't aware of the other ones before that. So we have 4 separate Touhou fans having the exact same Touhou Hijack idea, at almost exactly the same time as it came out, almost immediately, right? They launched into doing this really grand Touhou Hijack. And I think that really shows the community, right? Because each of these Touhou fans has a different story. They have a different story of how they ended up becoming a Touhou fan. Have a different story of, how they found this billboard. They have a different story of what they picked to show up there. I mean, I know they're all just Fumo photos, but I think this is a self-taken Fumo photo. And these are all from different sources, right? And yet, these are all Touhou fans. We all acknowledge all of these as a Touhou Hijack. And it's there's a lot of unity, right, in the community. That's why the word unity is in community. I only realized this very recently. Yeah. So, why are there so many Touhou Hijacks? Well, I think it's because of you all, right? It's because of the Touhou community. And I don't think it's necessarily solely just because of fandoms, right? The massive amount of fandoms. I don't think it's solely because of super fans. That definitely contributes to it, right? But I think it's the large variety in the Touhou community, right? All these Touhou Hijacks, all these case studies that I talked about are different, right? There's people who, in the Touhou community who do South American folk music, right? And there's people who, make art. There's people who make black media stuff. And all of those contribute to Touhou Hijacks, right? And because there's so much variety in the fandoms, that means Touhou can infiltrate every niche. And because it's infiltrated every niche, that's how it shows up everywhere, right? Because it's infiltrated every single part of society. And that's how it's possible because of the Touhou community branching out so much itself. And I think that is why there are so many Touhou Hijacks. Thank you. So we have a bit of time left for questions about Touhou Hijacks and stuff. Yes.
How did you get into Touhou?
Huh?
How did you get into
Oh, yeah. So originally, my first very popular YouTube video was Bad Apple, but it switches versions. Versions every line. You might have seen it. It's pretty popular on YouTube. I don't make stuff like that anymore, right? I discovered Bad Apple from See the Gunner, actually.
Yo!
And because I made a similar version of that video for Revenge, the Minecraft parody, I just said, hey, I like this song Bad Apple, right? I kind of want to make a version of that. And here's the long version of the song. So I think I had to find 80 separate covers. And in that process of finding 80 separate covers, all of very, very, very different, I got to explore the entirety of the Touhou musical arrangement realm. And I thought, this is pretty awesome. I should do this again. So I did it with Night Nights, I did it with You and No One Was Her, and the rest is history from there.
So you've always been going to the multimedia side of things, just got more specific about finding Touhou in other places rather than just finding various Touhou.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess I never really had that much of, a focus in the early days. I mean, I was just sort of messing around with iMovie in high school, right? But yeah, I think generally what I've been focusing is sort of Touhou on the internet and everywhere else. So more recently, I've been looking at the whole everywhere else side, right? But I'm still interested in Touhou on the internet, right? Because I think, again, on these Touhou hijacks, right, we have a couple that are physical hijacks in the real world, and a couple that are online hijacks, right? That are shared in digital. And I think those are both really cool. They're very cool examples in both of those categories. So yeah, I think, again, right, because of that, it's very multimedia, right? And very many different forms, making a shrine ritual cleansing manual of standard is not something you really see every day. Yes.
He mentions the one Toby Fox tweet. Have you played through chapter 3?
Let's see that. It is real.
He referenced it in chapter 3, it's great.
Yeah, it's
What?
It's still like
Sure did.
no.
Oh my god.
Won't someone please help me?
The whole percent story, right? We will not go into it here.
I can't see that. I watched my sister play Delta Room when I go back home. It's so good. Chapter 3 and 4 and sister.
Your adventures and studies taking you to the fighting engine Mugen.
I have seen a lot of stuff in there. I haven't, so the struggle I've been having, right, is with the Twitter account, right? Or I guess also Blue Sky account, I'm on there too. You have a very limited format to do it in, right? And the vastness of Touhou and Hijack is so insane that I don't think I can justify do it justice in a tweet thread. But that's why I've been trying to make Touhou Hijack videos. So I've been trying to get into that. I've been busy with school and whatnot. I guess I did my first one with my Kazakhstan trip. But I hope to like one day cover that sort of stuff. But I did do something sort of similar with my Rivals Against the thread and showing Touhou off there. So yeah, I think that's definitely something I'm really interested in looking at in the future.
If you need people to ask, you can hit me up and answer.
Awesome. Yes.
Plug your YouTube so we can find this after.
Delta Pi, DLTA, and Pi as in food. Yes.
You mentioned the other series that also have hijacks, but a particularly big one I've noticed recently that I think should have also been mentioned is the All Life Hijacks, especially with the Times Square one.
Yes. Actually, yeah, the HoloLive ones are really crazy. Thank you for reminding me of that, because I completely forgot. Because, I mean, Dodgers fan here, but, yeah, they had the HoloLive night at the Dodgers. They're actually doing that again. So that was super popular. And there was actually a Touhou Hijack at that event too.
Of course there was.
There were people that showed up on the Jumbotron. So, yeah, thank you for bringing that up because it is a very monumental hijack.
What is the highest profile hijack that you've reported on? Because we have like Giancarlo Esposito holding your Kuma. But how far up the ladder did you get?
How far up the
How
ladder?
prolific can an individual be that gets hijacked?
I mean, I think
Do we have a pope?
maybe soon.
Be the change you want to see in the world.
I personally think the biggest one is Juice WRLD. I think the second biggest one probably would be Giancarlo Esposito. And obviously everything Toby Fox does. That's
Yeah.
really spectacular around too. But I don't. As of now, there haven't been bigger ones, but you know, in time. Yes.
Do you think there's a major difference between something like a hijack and turning everything into bad apple? Like using every engine into bad apple?
Again, the line is very blurry, right?
Yeah.
So if you take the definition of Touhou, something that's not Touhou, right? Okay, well obviously what Touhou is the bad apple, right? So what's are not Touhou in this situation? And I think not Touhou can be like extended to define like, you know, the Nemesis, right? People, the sort of general community that are making these sorts of things. So I would say, yeah, you could call that a hijack. And again, it's not really all that, you know, cut and dry, right? It's not, the definition is not that rigid. And my focus is Touhou's influence on the world, right? So if something shows Touhou's influence on the world, like, you know, Bad Apple, being everywhere, being played on everywhere, right? That being really recognizable as well by people who don't know what a Touhou is, right? I think, yeah, that could be called Touhou. Yes.
So you mentioned South American folk music in this panel. So I was wondering if you're aware, there's one arranger out there who essentially arranges practically every single Touhou song in existence into like almost like any regional variant of Mexican music or like Peruvian, basically any South American folk music.
I think I
That's
know
the
that.
145.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
pretty cool.
He does everything himself. He's so cracked at it. It's unbelievable.
I'm really amazed at the variety of that artists. Like there's some like Filipino style music there too. I think one of the Chunko's things, something like that. But yeah, they're very cool artists, and one day, Touhou Hijack with them, hopefully. All right. You got any other questions? Yes.
I just have to ask. I keep on staring at you over there, Kuroji cosplayer. I have to ask, if you find like a Lynette hijack interesting enough, would you post it?
Sure. I've been down. I mean,
I've been playing Hijacks before.
where?
Trying to remember. Oh, it was mostly just sneaking the shield faces like, I mean, it's
Every different towns, right? Speaking, Lennon, everywhere. And yeah, like on that, it's not like, Lennon or Seiko or whatever. I know it's called Touhou Hijacks, but like I'm down to cover it, It's, again, I try to be pretty chill, so if you have something that sounds cool, send it over. And I will take a look.
My biggest thing I know is that someone made the spin the dots to do Bad Apple. That's the
That was really cool.
I can get the
It sounds cool. I think it's on YouTube or something. Alright.
that eventually influenced a different video where they eventually made a bunch of spin the dots they could do. So that would go off to that.
Oh, yeah, like it branched off from that, right? Yeah. And this is what I'm talking about, like Touhou inspiring things, right? I think Bad Apple was the first that didn't do the second step, right? So Bad Apple being there, sort of is the building block in that place, and I think that's pretty awesome.
Bad Apple is played on anything with a screen. Doom is played on anything with controls.
True.
And that's good enough.
Aren't they anything? Yes, it makes sense.
Yeah.
That was just like an entire weekend to render, so.
Hey, it's worth the effort.